listening today. This is my perception of how everything happened, and information that was provided to me as a child was that of what family members and my father have passed down to me. Let me mention that this is a trigger warning. In this video, I'll be touching on abuse, mental, emotional, and physical abuse. These are my parents. Here's a little backstory. My mom and my dad went to school together. My mom was actually my Aunt Denise's best friend. My Aunt Denise is my dad's sister. So some of the stories that my dad told me about my mom were just amazing, and you could truly tell that she was his soulmate. And he loved her, always did. Even all the years he was married to my stepmom, he still had crazy love for my mom. So my story begins on December 15th, 1981 at 3:36 a.m. This was my mom's first-hand experience. She said things went pretty well. First, they took a urine sample to see if I had a urine infection. They told me to walk to dilate more. So I walked until 9. They decided to keep me. So by 12:30 a.m., I hadn't dilated more than 5. So they gave me some Secondol to get a good night's sleep. Ray went home. I tried to get sleep, but contractions kept getting stronger. They finally called Ray about 2:30 a.m. He got there. They had prepped me, and contractions were about 1 minute apart. They told Ray to get the clothes from the nurse's station. They made me get on a gurney and ran to the delivery room. Changed tables again. Got my legs ready. Ray was right there beside me. He was so wonderful through it all. I love him so much. Pushed about 5 good times, and there she was. Hospital stay was pretty nice. There was 2 other girls in my room. One had her baby. The other was early and hadn't delivered. Went home the next morning. This is where my family of 3, my brother had been born the previous year, turned to a family of 4. Ta-da! I was born. But little did I know that my life was going to be changed forever. So my mom has suffered with obesity her whole life. The lowest weight she ever weighed was 350 pounds. So she had decided to have the gastric. In doing so, she lost a drastic amount of weight in the months that would follow. She became very sick. You see, when you lose a dramatic amount of weight fast, it can flip your genes on, whether it's a dormant gene or not. And this is exactly what happened to my mom. Enter leukemia. My mom fought for her life, even appeared on news stations asking for people to donate marrow in hopes of finding a donor match. But there were none to be found. So the doctors looked to my dad to make the call to take her off life support. Her family didn't want it to happen. They lived off, oh, she could pull through, just keep her on. But the doctors advised my dad that she was not going to live on, that she was not even there. Her soul had already left her body. So sadly to say, on December 26, 1983, my mom, Cindy, lost her battle with leukemia at the age of 23. In a conversation I would later have with my dad, he disclosed that he didn't know what to do. He was confused. He had 2 small children, and he didn't know how he was going to raise us on his own. So he felt that he needed to find us a mother. So he eventually meets a woman at a mutual friend's house, and they fall in love. And in November of 1984, our family of 3, my dad, my brother, and myself, became a family of 7. My stepmom came with her 2 daughters and her son. My stepmom claimed that she had tried to bond with me as an infant, but my dad wouldn't let her. She often would refer to times where she would have me in their bed with them, and my dad would tell her, hey, she's got to sleep in her own bed or whatever. So this is what my stepmom believes is why we never had a relationship together. Fast forward to 1989. Whoop whoop. I'm 8 years old. My dad's friend visits him and tells him of this place that's filled with all these false promises and dreams. And my dad decides to uproot the family and move us to Nyland, California, or better known as Slab City. Slab City was basically... Slab City, which is also called the Slabs, is an unincorporated, off-the-grid alternative lifestyle community, which consists largely of snowbirds, and it's located in the Salt and Trough area of the Sonoran Desert. It's located in Imperial County, California. It took its name from concrete slabs that remained after the World War II Marine Corps camp Dunlap was torn down. The Slab City is known for attracting people who want to live outside of the mainstream society. It's often deemed the last free space. Slab City was also an artillery training range for Camp Dunlap. It was settled by a few veterans who had worked at the Marine base, and later it would be followed by drifters. So this was like a free camping spots, and it's for everybody pretty much. Upon entering the Slab City, you'll see this mountain that says God is love. It's also known as Salvation Mountain. Salvation Mountain was actually created by this gentleman named Leonard Knight, whom my dad used to deliver water to. And upon occasion, my dad would deliver paint to him. And a few times we had a hand in helping paint the mountain. Leonard spent about 30 years building this mountain. It's built of adobe and donated paint. Leonard would work on this mountain all day long, every day. He even slept at the bottom in his pickup truck. He had no running electricity or water as well. There was an article that was featured in the Smithsonian Magazine in October of 2018, which referred to the community as a squatter's paradise, which locals consider to be one of America's last free places. This article said that the population, there are clearly people who don't want to be found. So there's something about disappearing, and the desert offers that kind of opportunity, which is just nuts. For the next year and a half, we lived in Slab City. Slab City is designed as an unincorporated, off-the-grid alternative lifestyle. So we lived on a slab, but not in a conventional house. My dad and my stepmom lived in a fifth wheel that had air conditioning and windows, while us kids lived in cab-over campers, the ones that go over the back of the truck, like you see in the picture. That truck also resembles the kind of truck my dad had. There was two campers. There was one for the boys and one for the girls. They didn't have AC. They didn't even have windows. We also had a green school bus, which had a restroom, and that's mainly what it was used for. We showered outside in a shower that my dad had built out of tarps and 2x4s, which the water, there's no electricity, so the water is either, kind of cold or it's scalding hot, depending on what time of day you decide to take your shower. The temperatures here in Slab City range from 89 degrees on the coldest days to 122 on the hottest days. Eventually we moved into a house right before we moved, for good, basically. This is where the abuse would start. Due to the weather being so hot, the locals would go swimming in the canals. The canals have really strong currents, and Dippy Duck, which was the duck that would discourage you from going swimming in canals, since the current was so strong in the canals, my brother and I were never allowed to go in. So we got to sit in the back of my dad's truck and watch as our step siblings got to go swim and have fun. During the summer, it was the same routine. We were confined to our campers, and no, not in the sense of doing whatever we wanted. We had to lay in the bed and stay there all day long. The only time we were allowed to leave was to go to the bathroom or to eat. Once I was so thirsty that I snuck out, crawling on my hands and knees to the water container that was located by the school bus, and snuck a drink of water from the dog's bowl. I know, sick, right? But you gotta do what you gotta do. I ended up getting caught and got whipped 13 times with a plastic hanger. You might ask, how did I know it was 13? Simply because the inside of the camper was so dry that every time the hanger swung down to hit my rear end, it marked the ceiling, and I later counted them. During the school year, it was wake up, get dressed. My dad would be the one to do my hair. It would be a little lame ponytail, but it always was complete with a cigarette burn on the middle of my forehead. After school, we'd come home, right to our campers, or rooms eventually, where until we were given food or drink. Rarely were we allowed to get a drink. Meals were never anything worth carrying on about. I can only honestly remember eating non-cooked top ramen or sandwiches. Occasionally, my stepmom would make us liver and onions, which I never ate, and it was served to us at a table that was made from a wire spool. One time, my stepmom came out with deli sandwiches behind her back, and she basically told us to pick a hand, almost as it was a game to see who was going to get the better sandwich or whatnot, which is not very funny. It's not a good thing to do to a young child. Fast forward, we ended up moving into a house, but the abuse still continued. We were confined to our rooms, matter of fact, to our beds. But being mischievous kids, my brother and I would jump on the beds, which were just simply mattresses on the floor with no frame. In return, we would get our asses handed to us, so to speak. Mind you, my two stepsisters are present this whole time, one of which finds her husband and marries at the age of 15, and the other does whatever she wants. My older stepbrother stayed in Sacramento with his grandparents. The physical abuse would continue. We would get spankings for not answering questions correctly, not doing things fast enough, refusing to go outside when it's 120 degrees, and so on and so on. The day it all changed, well, sorta, was when I recall how bad it hurt to this day. On this particular morning, we had woken up to do our daily ritual of getting ready for school, and so we did. And as we were getting ready for school, my stepsister was back talking to my dad, so my dad popped her in the mouth. My brother and I didn't even know this had occurred. But at school, my stepsister tells her friend what happened, and a teacher overhears. The teacher filed a report with Child Protective Services. Child Protective Services came and got us from our classes and spoke to us about the abuse. I remember as a kid, I was so freaking scared. They took us to the house after school, and I remember all I kept thinking was, damn, if I could just get on the roof, I could just stay up there. They wouldn't be able to get me down, and I wouldn't have to leave. And I was just so afraid of pretty much everything. But there's no such luck. They ended up taking us away, and we ended up going to a receiving home. They took pictures of the black and blue marks on my behind. They also bribed me with candy. Oh, if you let us take pictures of your behind, we'll give you this candy bar. Real nice of the Child Protective Services, right? To bribe a child. It was pretty much sad. This is just simply the beginning of the abuse that would continue to follow. I'm going to stop it here and continue in the next part. Thank you for listening. And remember that if you or someone you know who's a victim of abuse, there's always help available. You can visit the website www.thehotline.org or call the hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You're not alone.